Over the past year, we've been getting dribs and drabs of information surrounding what happened on January 6th. Text messages from Trump's inner circle have been released, and video after video from court exhibits presented by the Department of Justice have reminded us just how terrifyingly violent that day was. What's been missing, though, is the overarching story of the crime that unfolded. But in just under 6 weeks, we could start to get to just that. The chair of the House committee investigating January 6th, Democratic Congressman Benny Thompson, has announced that there will be 8 public hearings starting in June.
Well, we'll tell the story about what happened. We will use a combination, witnesses, exhibits, things that we have through the tens of thousands of exhibits we've interviewed and looked at, as well as the hundreds of witnesses we've deposed or just talked to in general. So it will give the public the benefit of what more than a year's worth of investigation has borne to the committee.
And that is exactly what another member of the January 6th committee, Congressman Jamie Raskin, says the public needs now more than ever.
The findings of the committee would blow the roof off the House because we now have the evidence to support a story of the worst presidential political crime against the Union in American history. Nothing that any other president ever did comes close to what happened on that day, and it will be harrowing for the American people to watch this story unfold.
Telling that story, it's essential for our nation's history. The American public needs to be reminded and presented with the facts of what happened that day. And considering what's at stake for our democracy, these facts must be presented before this year's midterm elections in November. Because with each passing day, the public's memory of the crime at the Capitol begins to fade. Fewer Americans now say that Donald Trump was responsible. Just after the riots, 52% of Americans said that Trump had a lot of responsibility for what happened on January 6th. That number has now dropped to 43% about a year later. And we've been here before. During Donald Trump's second impeachment trial in the aftermath of the riots, Democrats presented a compelling case against him. But ultimately, only 7 Republicans voted to convict, and Trump was acquitted. But here's the thing. The House Select Committee preparing to hold these public hearings knows much more now than those impeachment managers did then. Axios reports that they've conducted nearly 900 depositions and interviews and received over 100,000 documents. So my question, what kind of story will they be able to tell? And is the January 6th committee Congress's last chance to finally hold Donald Trump accountable, at least in the eyes of the American people? Joining me now is George Conway. He is a conservative attorney and a contributing columnist for the Washington Post. George, thanks for being here. Straight out of the gate, what are your thoughts about these public hearings that are going to begin in June? Do you think they're going to have the efficacy that the Select Committee thinks they're going to have?
Oh, well, I hope so. I mean, I think they're working on it very diligently. You have 900 witnesses they've talked to. I think the problem is that for them is they have to separate separate what really matters from all of the evidence that they've acquired, and they have to do it in a visually and compelling and a logical fashion, that something that's going to hold viewers' attention.
So, as a former trial lawyer, and you're an attorney for many years as well, there's this idea of primacy and recency, the idea the first thing you hear and the last thing you hear or see for a jury is going to be the most compelling. Jurors are also very visual creatures, as most, I think, humans would be. So what, in your opinion, is the best way to do this presentation for these public hearings?
Well, I think, again, you have to show the video of what happened on January 6th. So
but we see that video all the time, though, George. Are we numb to that, though?
Absolutely. You have to do that. But you're going to see people in their own words, not on transcripts, telling their story of what happened, and that's going to include people around Vice President Pence, people who are in the White House, and there are going to be some people there who aren't going to be particularly happy about testifying, and they're going to be, it's important that whoever is examining them be an effective cross-examiner and make sure that the witnesses don't get away with avoiding and giving speeches and so on and so forth. So I think, again, it's going to be a lot of what trial lawyers do, which is ordering the presentation, again, saving some of the best things for last, but bringing the audience in and bringing the jury in with things that are important at the beginning to set the stage for what's to come. And then, there's the media aspect of it, which is, you got to have something new every day. You have to have something, you have to, you're going to, unlike a trial where you don't really do it this way, you do it witness by witness by witness, they're going to have to do it theme by theme by theme, revelation by revelation by revelation. They have to craft these hearings in a manner where they're trying to visualize what the takeaway is going to be from people watching on television and reading their newspapers the next morning.
Gotcha. So I want to play this exchange from Chairman Thompson about what asking for additional interviews from members of Congress would be like. Let's take a quick listen.
Any other members you'll be asking to come before the committee, or do you think the panel's done in terms of considerations of other members?
Well, some other members will be sent letters, and we plan to provide the press copies of the letters.
Folks we don't already know about?
That's correct.
Any senators?
Yes.
Would I be wrong to say Senator Cruz, Senator Lee?
Got to stand by.
Georgia, I'm going to bet none of these senators are going to show up and talk. Honestly, what's the point then?
The point is you have to ask them.
Well, they're not going to show up.
They're not going to show up, and then you can say, well, why didn't they show up? These are people who like to go on TV all the time and spout out nonsense. And lo and behold, when they're actually going to be asked questions under cross-examination about things they don't want to talk about, they don't show up. These people who you have to basically block them from a TV camera.
That's right.
So why? The question is going to be, why do these people who want to present themselves on Fox News all the time, why don't they want to answer questions under oath and before a select committee? And I think the answer is going to speak for itself when we see all the text messages and all the other evidence of what the conversations that were had leading up to January 6th.
Do you think that there is a lot of evidence that has been in the possession of the DOJ? Obviously, we don't know what's going on in that investigation, but do you think there's a lot of evidence that the DOJ has that obviously we haven't seen been released from even the 1-6 committee? I
would hope so, and because they have powers that the 1-6 committee doesn't have. They have powers to get electronic information in a way that the committee does not have, and they have FBI agents talking to witnesses and who were involved in what was actually happening on Capitol Hill that day. So they are conducting their investigation, I think, more from a bottom-up aspect, and I think the committee is doing it a little more top-down, which I think together, if they coordinate and the evidence is ultimately put together, we'll have a full and complete historical record on what happened on January 6th and the weeks leading up to it. So, George, you were among many public, very visible conservatives who came out and said, we cannot support Donald Trump. I think that's an understatement, right? And in Michigan, though, like top GOP donors and former supporters of Trump are issuing statements like, whether it's a misguided belief, cynical cowardice, or just plain old grift and avarice, it's a losing strategy, and I cannot serve on the governing board of a party that's too stupid to see that. And they're talking about the big lie there in Michigan. Do you think Trump is finally starting to alienate some of his former base, the people that voted for him in 2016, the people that speak with the power of the almighty dollar, so he's losing money to be able to further his big lie? I think has been some incremental movement. Whether there's been enough or will be enough to actually constitute a critical mass to sort of unseat him as the effective party head remains to be seen. I mean, the problem still is that we have all these people in the House who are abiding by the big lie. We have even Senator McConnell, who knows better and has basically said that Trump probably should be criminally investigated, and who said that Trump caused all of this. He's saying, I'll support the Republican nominee in 2024, even if it's Trump. And so, there's a lot of cowardice and a lot of looking around and hoping that something else takes him out and that they're not going to get blamed for doing it. And, I think that until there's a critical mass of individuals who are willing to step up and be courageous and risk their political careers by basically finally telling the truth about Donald Trump, we're not going to get that far.
Well, I see no profiles in justice, frankly, in the current GOP, just right over there. But what would it take to whip that support, to get that critical mass of a tipping point of enough people to be able to say, we're not doing this anymore as a part of the GOP?
You know, it's funny. I mean, human behavior, you know, I always think of like the Berlin Wall, or I think of a stock market crash. You never quite know when it's going to happen. Then there could, you know, I've always hoped that there'd be some kind of, all of a sudden there'd be a stampede and people follow each other to the exits. It hasn't happened so far, but that's what it's going to take. At some point, if enough people believe that he's leading the Republican Party down, you know, over the cliff, and causing them to lose elections, and it could happen this year. And maybe he's crazy behavior. Well, maybe his candidates that he's supporting in these primaries won't win, and then maybe he does things in the fall that undermine the party nationwide. And maybe at that point, people will just start exiting, saying, okay, we've had enough. This is enough. Enough of the Trump show. Let's move on. But the problem is, beyond that, is, though, that, you know, he's let the termites loose in the House. Okay? We've got all these people, you know, Donald Trump could retire tomorrow and play golf for the rest of his life and be never heard from again. And we have all these people now who are mimicking him and trying to become junior Trumps. And some of them, you know, it doesn't say much, but some of them are smarter than Trump. So, and, you know, and that's a problem. I mean, because they have created, you know, Trump created this market for lies, and all these junior politicians who want to follow Trump in his footsteps are basically, okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to spout out lies. We're going to create fake culture war issues.
But the Trump strategy didn't work. He lost. He may have won in 2016, but it didn't work in 2020. So why mimic that strategy if it's a failing strategy?
Because if you don't play along, you run the risk of being attacked from the right in a primary.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So I want to ask about Trump still being obsessed with you. He sent out an email yesterday calling you names, making allegations about your mental state. I got to ask quickly, why is Trump so triggered by you specifically?
I can't explain I mean, I can tell you that he is, you know, triggered, and I can tell you he's a narcissistic sociopath. I can say those things because he fits all the descriptors. But what actually goes on moment to moment in that man's head, I don't know. I will say this. I mean, I kind of feel for the guy. I mean, it's you just...
You have sympathy?
Listen, think about it. Katie, think about it. He lost the presidency.
Well,
let me finish.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let me finish.
My bad.
He lost the presidency. He lost both houses of Congress. He got impeached once, not once, but twice. He conducted a coup. He tried to conduct a coup that completely failed. He's been the jokes on the subject of jokes from late night comics for 5 years. He can't spell, and he's just. You'd be mad too if all of that was true about you. You wouldn't feel that great. I don't know if I'd be mad.
I just wouldn't run for the presidency of the United States again. Is what I want to do. George Conway, tell Bonnie the corgi we send our best. I got a corgi calendar for you here, so she'll be very excited. Thank you for being here, George,
She'll probably
today.
Eat it.
She'll eat it?
Yeah,
Please, no,
okay.
it's not.